Howdy everybody, we're back with some RPG horror stories. Today we're going to talk about a player getting kicked from a game, a player fudging dice rolls, and a DM taking Strahd to an unfortunate extreme. Our first story is from Zora's, titled, I Got Kicked Out of a Game for Not Liking Burn Notice. Story goes as such. Hello, apologies for the clickbait title, but it kind of fits. This story happened a couple years ago. I've been holding off telling it because it's difficult to talk about. Just thinking about it makes me angry and upset, but I think it's important to exercise as part of my life. It all started when I joined a Star Wars game on Roll20. This used Fantasy Flight Games' Star Wars system. It's a fun little system that I enjoyed because it's good at using the dice to tell a story. A podcast I enjoyed at the time called Dice for Brains used this system, and I was eager to try it for myself. I'd never played a tabletop game before, so these were my first campaigns. I think this is an interesting start into TTRPGs. Most, I feel, kind of get their start with like something like D&D 5e or some other form of like high fantasy system like Pathfinder, Pathfinder 2nd Edition, something like that. For those unaware, FFG Star Wars uses what is called a narrative dice system. It uses these special dice to kind of help tell the story. The benefit to such a system is it allows for more flexible narrative play. For example, in 5e, you need to roll X like on a dice with a, D20 and modifier to generally succeed. In FFG Star Wars, you may roll a certain number of successes in order to be able to succeed, but if some of the dice used ended up having a bad outcome on them, your GM would incorporate a potential partial negative into that roleplay. An example within Star Wars would be, I shoot at a stormtrooper and you roll and succeed, but the bad portion of that dice roll, some of the dice may have some negatives on there, causes you to also potentially hit, let's say, a panel behind that stormtrooper, which shuts a door that we really need to get through. So you have your positive, but also a potential negative that goes along with it. Back to our story though. The DM seemed confident enough. I played an entire campaign for him for over a year. The campaign wasn't perfect, but I had fun. However, cracks were already forming. I just hadn't noticed them yet. In the first campaign, we had this one player whom I got along with pretty well, but when it ended, she got kicked from the game. Apparently she'd been cheating, and the DM and another player, he would play a soldier in the next campaign, wanted her gone. She was giving herself skills she wasn't supposed to have. I saw none of this, but I took their word for it. While a fair punishment, the DM did one thing that irked me. He kicked her out without a word or chance to defend herself. Obviously, cheating should not be allowed, but shouldn't she at least be given a chance to explain herself? Or at least get a warning first to change her ways. I only learned about this when the player PM'd me, wondering why she'd been kicked from the Discord server. This will foreshadow future events. This is rather shady. I can understand the DM speaking with a player off to the side about potential cheating so as not to cause a scene. But ideally, you would want to try to let someone learn, because their cheating, quote unquote, may just be because they misread the rules. You always want to approach it from a positive and from a place of potential positivity, and not that they are attempting to cheat or be a bad person. Let's continue though. So we started a new campaign, and the premise seemed pretty good. We were Imperials working for the Empire after the fall of Emperor Palpatine in Return of the Jedi. We would work for the Empire before finally defecting to the New Republic. My character was named Zaimi Ravenlock. She was a communications expert with the rank of lieutenant. She worked on the Star Destroyer before coming to the base the story was centered on, but my character had a secret. Disillusioned with the Empire's actions, she had joined the rebellion as a spy. I wrote the character as kind of a joke. This is Star Wars, so why not? The silly thing about Zaimi was that she wasn't a conventional spy. She was somewhat odd. Zaimi spoke in a very flat, monotone voice, barely ever showing any emotion. She also had a deep love for droids, which she got from her parents. I didn't take Zaimi too seriously, but I never realized DM would. Deathly seriously. So I like this character idea of like a monotone droid-loving spy. Hopefully, OP let the DM know that this character is meant to be kind of more of a joke character and meant to be played more jokey. If that's your aim when you make a PC, let the DM know. That way they can plan accordingly. Back to our story though. Our characters were all stationed on this base, where the remnants of the Empire, led by a warlord ex-general, were trying to consolidate power. Imperial scientists showed some interest in the planet because its wildlife and fauna were unusual. Of course, they were conducting unethical experiments on them. One of the player characters, sorry I forgot his name, was an Imperial researcher. Zaimi was naturally interested in what the Empire was doing, so my character decided to chat with the scientist PC in the mess hall with innocent questions to learn some details, but the DM didn't like this. While we were chatting, an NPC overheard our conversation and rolled to see if we were doing anything suspicious. There wasn't an in-game reason for this. We were two among a crowd. In fact, I don't recall learning much. We weren't talking about anything in particular. Nonetheless, the NPC rolled, and I don't recall him rolling that well. He didn't roll a triumph, which would be a crit success, or anything, but succeeded enough in the DM's view. The NPC reported my actions to a superior officer, and this is where everything hit the fan. Okay, perhaps OP's character was asking some very obvious questions that made them sound like a spy? Otherwise, I'm not sure why the DM would dislike a PC interacting with another PC in what looks to be a positive manner. And by positive manner, I mean they weren't trying to rob, kill, or anything like that off the cuff with another player. The DM thought I was being too impatient and wanted to punish me for my sloppy spy work. He had a rigid idea of how spies should behave, and I wasn't living up to it. So the warlord brought me to his office and dressed me down for several minutes. Then, as punishment for poking my nose where it wasn't wanted, he demoted me to ensign, even though my character had years of experience as a communications officer. And the Empire, in shambles, it really needed people of her skill level. Okay, so it kind of sounds like this DM needs to be a little bit more flexible as to how their PCs are going to interact. If they're straying too far, they should let a player know that they're acting very weird for that situation or something like that. That way this doesn't end up seeming like a gotcha moment later on. Not content, the DM also had my commanding officer dress me down. It wasn't fun. And the DM explained to me why I was facing this punishment. This seemed like an unnecessarily harsh punishment in-game considering the minor infraction. Wouldn't it make sense to give my character mess duty for a couple weeks or some other menial task? But no, I had to face the harshest punishment possible, outside of execution. This unfortunately killed my character in a way. I hesitated to do anything too risky out of fear of punishment, so I played my character a little too safely, and it stole the fun out of playing a spy. And it wasn't the only one to suffer. The Imperials started bullying both me and the party. I was the oddball and thus an easy target. The fact Zamie won't ever rise to the bait made them even angrier. We became a party of outcasts. It wasn't fun and brought back terrible memories of high school bullying. I realize they're bad guys, but still. Ugh. I should have spoken up about this, but I avoid conflict by nature. Alright, it's unfortunate that OP and party were punished for a more positive interaction with NPCs. If I was OP, after the punishment, I would reach out to the DM and ask what they seem to think would be the way a spy should act in this scenario. That way, there potentially wouldn't be any wires crossed. But this DM clearly needs to be a little bit more open-minded, or they need to let the party know what tone is expected from this campaign. Because Star Wars, for those who have not seen all the media and content out there, can range from very dark and serious, for a series like Andor, to more goofy and more kid show-esque, which was Rebels for a good chunk of its runtime. So the campaign continued as normal, and we eventually left the Empire to join the New Republic, with Zamie vouching for the party. Everything seemed normal enough, but the situation was about to turn sour. During an infiltration mission on a Star Destroyer, I kinda messed up. My intention was to splice into a terminal for some info while no one was looking, but the DM and the Soldiers player put a hard kibosh on this. They argued I should do it somewhere out of sight instead. Okay, makes sense. My bad. I was being impatient, but in my defense, I was trying to avoid hogging playtime, and we ended up wasting time anyway, chatting with some random stormtroopers for almost the entire session. Later, the Soldier players recommended 2 shows for me to watch to become a better spy and team player. Burn Notice, and another show I can't remember. As I mentioned before, I was still a beginner to role-playing. I was still developing my skills as a team player, but I don't think I was that bad. It's not like I went off on my own or acted out or anything, but whatever. So I decided to watch Burn Notice on Netflix, or Amazon Prime, I forget. As suggested, but halfway through the pilot, I lost interest. It really wasn't my thing. And the other show cost money, so I just skipped it. While I didn't like Burn Notice, I took the player's advice to heart and swore I'd do better. Alright, I'm all for a player suggesting to a new player on how to better roleplay, but this sounds like a situation where OP was maybe expecting something more lighthearted and the DM/other player wanted something more serious. Tone expectations need to be conveyed to players prior to starting play. The DM asked me if I had watched these shows. I told him rather candidly that I didn't like Burn Notice and the other show cost money, so I didn't watch it. I thought nothing of it at the time, but I'm guessing the DM thought my response meant I had ignored the Soldier player's advice completely. I came off as rather flippant and blunt, though this wasn't my intention. After a few sessions passed and everything seemed normal enough, but after we finished a mission involving a Wampa on Hoth, the DM messaged me on Discord. He told me I was off the campaign, stating my playstyle was incompatible with the party. At first I was bewildered, but genial. I replied to the PM, stating it was fine and that I was sorry to hear it. I told him I was still new to roleplaying and asked for any advice to improve for my next campaign. The DM never replied. I was kicked from the Discord server and probably blocked, and in the campaign search for players page on Roll20, I was blocked from viewing it. The DM had severed all ties with me. It hurt, and for years, I was scared to join another campaign. Silly, I know, but when you get burned that badly, it's hard to open up again. Thinking about it still boils my blood. If the DM had a problem with me, why not just talk with me? We could have easily settled this without conflict. I thought he was my friend, but I was gravely mistaken. I don't write this to make the DM look bad. No, I write this so other players can learn from it. If you have a problem with a player, just talk to them. People aren't mind readers. Please be patient with your players. They may be kind of stupid and have no idea what they're doing, but they just want to have fun. Okay, this is why communication is key. If there are clear tone differences or a player needs help correcting how they roleplay, the DM should be willing to step in and assist, especially with a new player. Every mistake should be seen as a growing opportunity for a new player. Now, if OP was being an asshole the entire time and refused multiple instances of suggestions, I can see the DM kicking them. But it would seem here that the DM didn't really help, and the only assistance given was from another player, which was basically, watch these shows. When better advice would be something along these lines. Say something like, hey, this campaign's more serious in tone, so maybe play the character a little bit less jokey. You know, what you could do is your character, or how you could view this is your character is an undercover agent trying to spy on the Empire. Death could potentially happen at any time if they mess up. Potential ways to move forward with your character is maybe your character is willing to sacrifice those that are not on the team to further the goals of the New Republic. This offers an example of expectations of what the roleplay should be and how to potentially view and act on that character moving forward. It's constructive criticism and it helps the person grow instead of just being, go watch these TV shows. Has this ever happened to you? Ugh, it's nighttime during the week and I'm so bored. I wish there was someone I could watch on Twitch. Oh, what good news, totally real person. Are you bored at night during the week? Do you want to talk TTRPGs and watch video games? Well, there's a solution. Davey streams on Twitch during the week from 7 to 10 p.m. Central Time. So come on down if you want to talk TTRPGs, video games, or want to watch me play games such as Coming in Kingdoms, Deliverance 2, or Marvel Rivals. I couldn't think up a fancy name for it, but you should come watch. Wow, thanks Davey, my boredom is cured. You're welcome, totally real person, and you too can benefit from this by watching me on Twitch. I stream normally 7 to 10 p.m. Central during the week, and I hope to see you there. Alrighty, our second story is from Radio Saint and is titled Player Obviously Fudges Dice Roll and Hugely Derails Session. I don't realize until it's too late. Not a terrible horror story, but I'm trying to decide how to handle this as the GM. Apologies for any grammar or spelling errors, English is not my first language. Playing online via Discord and can't see each other's rolls. I know, but up until now, everyone has been trustworthy. There have been some curiously high rolls in the past from this player, but nothing egregious. I should also point out they're usually a good player outside the dice fudging. So for those that play over Discord, there are dice rolling bots that you can use, or you can move to something like Roll20, which has a free option, and use Discord for your source of voice calling and source of info, notes, lore, stuff like that. At one point, she rolled to pass a check with a high DC, deliberately high because I didn't really want them to do the thing that I had, but I had to honor the decision. She took a while, maths isn't their strong suit, nor mine unaided to be honest, and eventually said it hit exactly the DC. I have two other players doing their own things at this point, so I just sighed and described the carnage that ensued, rather than what I'd initially planned for the session. After the session, I was listening back to the recording for notes when it hit me. There's no way, unaided, they could have hit that DC. This hadn't been my original intent. Honestly, I thought their modifier was high enough to scrape it. I thought, okay, maybe it was a mistake of adding up, but even if they got a natural 20, they'd have been one off the DC. And of course it had been a nat 20, they would have mentioned it. I feel I've got to bring it up because it's either demanding everyone roll in an online dice roller, which will get complaints because RNGesus, or I make her show rolls every time something seems suspiciously high. I don't want to be having to watch my players' sheets like a hawk, and I'm not trying to make anyone feel uncomfortable, but I'm also sure I'm not the only one who noticed. I spoke to one of the other players and they said to just let it slide, but what would you suggest? Okay, so for situations where you really don't want a PC to be able to do something, you can, for example, say that it would be impossible and just not allow a roll to occur. Now, I recommend trying to not do this too often, but if it's something that would really derail a session, or the DC would be so incredibly high that they couldn't obtain it, do not let them roll. When you let a PC roll, you're letting them know that what they want to do is potentially possible. Now, as for dealing with this potential cheating, there's a couple ways to go about this. Easiest is just swap to an online dice roller. It makes things consistent and people can't cheat. Also, maths are easier because you can calculate the modifiers within the bot. Otherwise, you could say something to the entire party about making sure to calculate your modifiers and rules correctly, specifically not calling anyone out, or if this specific person does this again when they roll, keep an eye out. And if it is off, ask them to check their math out loud for your clarity. For example, you could say, hey, I'm pretty sure your dex modifier is a +2. How'd you hit a DC 25? This latter example can end up being very direct and confrontational though, so if OP wants to avoid this, I highly just recommend swapping to an online dice roller to make their own job easier as a DM. Just say you've got a lot of things to handle, because as the DM you do, and that using an online dice roller makes things easier for you. Okay, our last story is from Faye Magics and is titled Mind Control in Strahd's Castle. Content warning, dubious consent / sexual assault. You've been warned. Some friends and I are running a Curse of Strahd campaign right now, and this is my first time ever playing Strahd, while all the other players have played in it or run it before. A few sessions ago, Strahd appeared to my character and offered her a deal. Briefly exchanged one of the party members for the ability to travel to and from Barovia, really, whenever she wanted. I made sure to get clarification that we would be getting this character back. My character decided to offer herself up instead of any of the other party members, and that deal came to fruition 2 sessions ago, and I'm playing a backup character for now. Alrighty, so this is a weird start to Curse of Strahd. For those who are unaware, one of the big plot pushing devices for a party in this campaign is that they cannot leave Barovia and are essentially trapped there until Strahd is dealt with. So basically, if the party wants to go home and leave that hellhole, Strahd needs to be handled. So I'm not sure why this was added in. My DM and I finally got time together to detail my character's time at Strahd's castle. Strahd starts to flirt with my character and give her jewelry. My character, not wanting to upset Strahd, decides to put on the jewelry. Upon wearing this jewelry, my character had to start making wisdom saves, and the more jewelry she was given to wear, the harder these saves became, until I was just auto-failing them. My character was eventually propositioned by Strahd, and being under mind control, she agreed. Alrighty, question I probably shouldn't be asking, but I'm going to ask anyway. Proposition for marriage or something worse? Assuming either, this really needed to be talked about with the party regarding tone of the campaign, because both of these are a little fucked up. I was never made aware this was the direction my DM was planning to go with this deal. It felt like I couldn't disagree or stop it now that this was where it had ended up. I had mentioned previously in and out of character that my character was an abuse survivor already and would have loved a heads up regarding this. I was looking forward to playing my character again post Strahd Castle and navigating the trauma that came with it. But now I'm not sure I even want to stay in this campaign. My DM is my friend and in multiple other campaigns with me as a player, and I fear the social repercussions leaving the Strahd campaign will have. Alrighty, so this is a tough one to navigate. I highly recommend never broaching anything near dubious consent or sexual assault in a D&D campaign. D&D is meant to be an escape, and many do not want to travel those potential plot threads. If, though, your entire table is down for this, power to you. But this is a tough and potentially touchy subject that isn't really worth trying to navigate, in my own opinion. I would highly recommend that OP speak with their DM privately about this and how they wish there was a heads up about what potentially was going to happen tone-wise. Don't necessarily blame the DM, as they may not have been trying to cause intentional harm doing this. And if it's too much, be honest with the DM and ask what can be done to either undo this or potentially move on to a separate character, as you may need to in this instance, as maybe this can't be undone. Now, outside of this, I really hope this isn't a situation where the DM's kink was kind of being forced into manifest here, and that the DM really just wanted to make Strahd a character that the party really wanted to eliminate. Though normal Strahd, I'm going to be honest, is a very easy BBEG to want to eliminate with all of this dubious consent sexual assault stuff. They're a horrible tyrant over the entire Barovia. That's going to be it for that, though. So, that's going to be it for today. Thank you all for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's video, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe for more. Also, don't forget to comment down below with your thoughts on either of these 3 stories. I appreciate everybody watching and taking the time to sit down through this entire video. Don't forget to catch me on Twitch. I hope to see you guys live when I'm on Twitch sometime, and I will see you all later. Bye, everybody.